Atlus is a game development studio over in Japan who will tell you that they are the greatest studio ever, even though they like to just trip over their shoelaces a lot of the time. To my regular Yakuza viewers, of which I hope all of you are here, Sega owns Atlus, and they're connected in many more ways than just that. And if you've watched my video on RPGs, and yes, I said RPGs and not JRPGs, because they're still RPGs, you're racists, and just because my favorites are coincidentally all the ones from Japan doesn't mean I haven't spent 10 million hours in Western ones. Anyway, you'll know that I only started getting into Atlus games in 2020. And even since then, I've been able to see the unfortunate fact of Atlus just getting lost time and time again. After Persona 5, Atlus were in a bit of a dry spell. You need no more proof than something like Soul Hackers 2. What even the hell was that game? Ironically, just like Atlus, Sega also like to fumble the bag a lot. Their Persona equivalent is the Yakuza or Like a Dragon series, where they always manage to consistently make a high quality game. But Sega struggles even with their own mascot Sonic, because every second Sonic game has more bugs than, I don't know, a New York apartment or something, and is flung together in 10 minutes by a team of like 4 people. So with Sega's own RGG studio managing to carry the hell out of them with consistently high quality games, does their conjoined twin kind of thing have something similar? Well, yes, they do. It's themselves, but only as of this year. Towards the beginning of this year, there was this game called Unicorn Overlord. It was a shockingly awesome game, and managed to be a lot more successful than Atlus were expecting. And yes, I know it wasn't actually developed by Atlus, and instead was just published by them, but I think it was the start of a great omen for the company. But there was another good sign about a month earlier, although just pretend for the sake of this video that Reload was second. Anyway, Persona 3 Reload was a pretty awesome game. It made a tremendous amount of quality of life and of course visual improvements over the other versions of Persona 3, but most notably fixed a lot of dumb gameplay decisions that Persona 4 or 5 fixed, like how originally you couldn't control your brain-dead party members. Of course, you still have people arguing over which version of Persona 3 is actually the best one, and for me, I can tell you right now that I never want to ever have to go back to Junpei spamming physical attacks on enemies weak to fire, or having Yukari healing herself when she's missing 20 HP and not me who only has 20 HP. I also think Portable's presentation is quite arse, so I'll take Reload any day of the week. I beat the original, or well, the re-released original of Persona 3 Fez, but I still haven't been able to find myself beating Reload. It's great, don't get me wrong, but you see, there's this little thing with the 3 modern Personas. Persona 5 easily had the best gameplay of the 3 of them, with vastly more fun tools, much more unique dungeons, and the fact that the enemies you fight are the Personas you can make, like how the parent series Shin Megami Tensei does it. Then there's Persona 4 with its immensely lovable cast of characters who are all bubbling with personality, and their interactions with one another are substantially more entertaining and realistic than the other 2 games. It also has Chie Satonaka, so that's just a win by default. And finally there was Persona 3 with its actually very well written story that'll keep you engaged for the whole time you play it. Some people like to get angry and say that none of what I just said is true, because admittedly all of it is the standard parroted opinion on the internet, but it kinda is just the objective truth. Persona 3's gameplay, as I described earlier, was kinda annoying, and Persona 5's characters were all immensely horrible people, as well as them being a bunch of inconsistently written dumb shits, but there was usually one single thing driving me forward on all 3 of my playthroughs. For Persona 5 Royal, it was the Royal content because it's actually really good and had really good characters, and I also pursued new challenges with new and unique dungeons, new personas to fuse, new demons to face. With Persona 4, it was the pursuit of the new interactions with the lovable cast, especially given how I was cut off from the world considering the time I was playing it. And with Persona 3, it was always me wanting to know what happens next in the story that I was completely hooked on, even though I played it on my breaking PS3 that kept on turning off randomly and forcing me to lose an hour of progress, because saving in Persona 3 sucked. But all 3 of those games have something that does always frustrate me and makes me kinda not want to go back to them. It's the reason why my Persona 3 Reload playthrough has been put on hold, and is honestly one of the main appeals for many fans of the games. It's the whole day-night stuff, and all the social links, all the forced cringe anime event things. A lot of it you can only really experience once. Yeah, Persona 3 has Akinari, the best one on the franchise, but I just want to fight dudes. Persona 3 Reload is an awesome game, but I don't want to have to stop to do this bullshit I either don't care about, or already know about and don't want to do again. And that's where Shin Megami Tensei V Vengeance comes in. Hell yeah! You see, the original SMT5 on the Switch kinda sucked balls. I had experienced peak. I had a lot of fun with SMT4 Apocalypse. I didn't play these too much as well, but I also had fun with SMT3 and Digital Devil Saga, and so I went into SMT5 with so much excitement. I even bought the freaking special collector's edition with the bag and the book that just had a bunch of PNGs, and that was it. I was so hyped. And it sucked. I was left feeling so disappointed. But then Vengeance gets announced, and the devs themselves were like, look, SMT5 was kinda ass, and we're here to change that. And they freaking succeeded with incredibly bright flying colors. The original soundtrack was pretty good, but the Vengeance soundtrack was savage. The gameplay improvements were so amazing, the quality of life made me cum, and the redone story just completely shits all over the original. All of this didn't just make it better than the original, because to be honest, it's not hard, but it became better than a lot of games that have been made. Without any doubt, this has been my favorite game of this year. I mean, when you get such fun gameplay with an actually good story, and you combine it with this... you've got the game of the year. Although of course, it won't win anything at all at the shill shamble event known as the Game Awards, because it's a Japanese game that isn't mainstream enough for people to convince themselves is not made by Japan. But there is a chance for an Atlus game to get the recognition it deserves. A game that, whether I'll like it more than Vengeance or not, I don't know, but it is one that I think a majority of players will enjoy. And that's of course, Metaphor ReFantazio. Or Tazio, apparently. I went into the demo of that game with a lot of faith in Atlus, and thankfully that faith was rewarded. It has so far shown to me that it is a fantastic game. Or a fantastic game or something. But man, it's pretty funny. Atlus are trying to pretend like this is the first RPG ever made, and they're so clever for doing something so unique and creative, but it really is just Persona 6 set in medieval times, and it has the press turn system. So what does that mean? Well, it's Persona but without the lame high school stuff you're forced to do, and with the best RPG turn-based system just ever made. I really love the sprinkle of action combat in the game. Atlus again are pretending like if you want you can turn this game into Dark Souls or something, but realistically it's just the usual Atlus combat engagement thing where you can swipe at an enemy to gain an advantage. But a super clever idea that they've had is that weaker enemies can just easily be killed in the action style, and even stronger enemies can too, but it just takes much longer. It's similar to a mechanic added in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth called Smackdown, where basically the game lets you focus on fun things and won't force you to waste your time with piss weak enemies. The soundtrack is again a lot of Atlus sucking themselves off. It's still cool, don't get me wrong, but they're acting like them using orchestral music is some sort of amazing feat of human engineering. I love orchestral music, but a series like Final Fantasy does it way better, sadly. And also, SMT5 Vengeance soundtrack exists, so they should just put that soundtrack in all of their games. I don't care how out of place it sounds. But something that has been exceptional in Metaphor is the way the so far actually really good story is told. In the generic text box cutscenes from Persona, they have actual camera angles and stuff, which adds such a huge amount, even if it is very basic. The protagonist actually speaks, thank the bloody lord, like first Atlus protagonist to ever do that in their actual game, I swear to god. The mostly British voice cast was very surprising, given how it was handled by Americans, but with goats like Lord Dion himself being one of the main characters, you already know this shit's glorious. The text is also using mostly British spelling, which is great too, because it means defense has a C and analyze has an S, for example. The dialogue is also expertly natural, which is something you so rarely see from a lot of the dogshit dialogue of something like Persona, where they have never heard of subtlety in their life and have to explain everything directly to your face every single time. But a surprising thing in the game, and something that's surprisingly very well handled, is, for lack of a better term, racism. As an Elden, so basically a human, you're treated like absolute shit in a very realistic and, unfortunately for us humans, a very immersive way. You see, in something like Persona 5 with its typical Persona dialogue, aka Japan propaganda, you walk down the street and you can listen in on a conversation that usually sounds like this. Wow, the weather is starting to get a bit colder. Yes, that's because it's approaching winter. But fortunately in Japan, we have heaters. But they're special heaters, and no other country has them. And they're the best thing, and nothing is better than these heaters. But it also doesn't get badly cold in Japan because we have such amazing weather. And no other country in the world even has cold weather. We truly are the best country in the world. But then meanwhile in Metaphor, when you listen on a conversation in a tavern or something, it sounds like this. Wow, the weather is starting to get a bit colder. Yes, that's because it's a... What the fuck do you want, you It's like how in the early game of Final Fantasy 16, everyone calls you branded scum. It's racism done right. Oh no, I probably shouldn't say that, should I? The dialogue, the voice acting, the everything is just so much more natural. And I'm glad that I've experienced games like Final Fantasy 16 and Xenoblade 1 and 3, because those games showed that we kinda need more British dubs that are like, properly serious, so basically not Dragon Quest XI. Not to make it a whole racist thing myself, but I feel like America has been too faithful to anime. A lot of people like that, but anime is just so unnatural. No one fucking talks like an anime character in real life. But over in the UK, the actors seem, to me at least, to not be voicing anime, and instead they're performing plays. And both of those sorts of things have their own degree of hamming things up. But anime dialogue and behavior and mannerisms is just... It's weird pretty much 99% of the time. Only in some of the truly great shows and games that come out of Japan do you avoid the feeling that you're watching a bunch of aliens who adopted very specific personalities to blend in with society. Long story short, Atlus have finally remembered how to make video games, but they still have never learned how to make PC ports. Metaphor's PC port, despite the game looking like it could be on PS3, runs like utter dog shit. And throughout the years, a lot of Atlus PC ports neglect having support for anything beyond a 16:9 display, and a lot of the time they lock everything to 60 FPS and have about as many settings as like Metroid Fusion, which is a GBA game, by the way. Maybe Metaphor will get some fixes, but at least the PS5 and Series X versions seem to be void of issues. Regardless, I am incredibly excited to keep playing the game, and I'm looking forward to more of Atlus's big titles. This video wasn't necessarily to provide some complex opinion piece or anything, but instead just to provide some good news about a very great yet inconsistent developer. And because this is in the past, maybe I'll stream Metaphor, but it'll probably get like 5 views, and so too will this video because I make videos on the Yakuza games, so I don't know. But if you don't watch my channel and like Yakuza games, check out one of my nearly 200 videos on the series. If you do watch my channel because you're a Yakuza fan, then don't be those people in the comments who say they watch every video but haven't subscribed, because you should subscribe if you haven't. And if you've subscribed, if you've liked, if you've shared or whatever, then do me one last favor and play SMT5 Vengeance. And also get Final Fantasy 16, it's on PC now.